Welcome to the Gabriel Method Expert Interview Series. I'm John Gabriel, author and creator of the Gabriel Method, a diet-free approach to sustained weight loss. And I'm very pleased today to be talking to Dr. Paula Watkins, who will be telling us about the scientific research and benefits of meditation. Dr. Paula Watkins is a clinical psychologist, meditation coach, and also holds a PhD in public health and community medicine. A longtime practitioner of yoga and meditation, she also is a registered yoga teacher with the Yoga Alliance. Dr. Watkins has immersed herself in the fields of psychology, neuroscience, and contemplative traditions, and translates research and wisdom from these traditions into effective strategies for improving well-being. She's a consultant and coach at the Happiness Institute, offers meditation workshops, and is about to release the first online course teaching the art and science of meditation. As you're listening, you can learn more about Dr. Paula and all the work that she does at calmconsciousconnected.com. So, Dr. Paula, thanks so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time. And I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how you personally got involved with meditation.
Okay, it's a little bit of a story. I guess the way I kind of conceptualize it is that there are a few kind of threads that have come together to kind of form this tapestry, and quite different threads. So the first thread is really I'm a clinical psychologist. So I've always had an interest in the human mind, in our well-being. However, when I trained as a clinical psychologist, meditation was just kind of this fringe topic.
Yeah, just to relax from stress or something like that, calm down a little bit.
Really didn't have a place yet. It was considered a little bit weird. But it was also during my time at university, I also studied religious studies with a focus on Southeast Asian, particularly Buddhism. So that was another kind of way in which meditation was starting to weave in. I then first experienced yoga at university, and that was my first experience of meditation as well. I also had an interest in neuropsychology, and I went on to work for some time in offender populations, so forensic settings, where a lot of my clients had traumatic brain injuries, particularly frontal lobe injuries. So I guess in a way I became acutely aware of the importance of the frontal lobe, and we'll probably no doubt be discussing the frontal lobe because it's so relevant to meditation. Yeah. After working in forensics for some years, I went on to work in refugee mental health care. And I was again here getting to call upon my religious studies and knowledge of Buddhism because I was working in Southeast Asia. So the war in Burma, or Myanmar, I guess as we now say, was still very active at that time. So I was working predominantly with Buddhist populations. And that actually sparked my interest in doing research. So that's actually also what brought me to Australia. I wanted to work with this population of refugees and better understand their experience. So I went back to university not as a psychologist. I'm always a psychologist, but I wanted to study as an ethnographer. So I was using anthropology. So I also have a doctorate in that field. So for me, there's kind of the anthropology, there's the culture, there's the neuroscience and the neuropsychology, and then the heart of the practice through my yoga and meditation.
So when did you actually get started actually meditating? How did all these disciplines come together to form a meditation practice for you?
The meditation practice really began when the yoga practice began in my university days. Okay. So in my early 20s, I then began what was kind of, I guess, a 10-year love affair with Vipassana meditation traditions. Yeah. I've since also extended my study beyond that, but it really took hold at that time.
So can you talk a little bit about some of the scientific evidence out there that meditation is beneficial? Like, as you said, when you were studying psychology, it seemed like a fringe type of thing, and now it's becoming very mainstream. So what are we learning right now about the benefits of meditation?
I think a really helpful approach to understanding the benefits of meditation is to break them up into 4 key areas. And those areas are the physical benefits of meditation, the cognitive, so the mental performance kind of benefits, the emotional, the psychological benefits, and then the social. The physical benefits, let's not discuss too much because we've been hearing about this stuff for 60 years, right? So these are the benefits of activating the parasympathetic nervous system. And anytime we activate that wing of our nervous system, we're getting all the good stuff that comes with that. We get lowered blood pressure, lowered heart rate, respiration goes down, immune functioning improves, but that's not specific to meditation. So we can get those benefits from kind of any practice that takes us into deep relaxation. So let's kind of put that to the side, because I think we're more interested in specifically what does meditation give us. And in the kind of cognitive or the mental performance realm, this is where meditation does appear to have some unique benefits. So we know that meditation increases blood flow and eventually tissue density to the frontal cortex. And this is the home of our focus, our concentration, some of our memory-related skills. And this is why we see that meditators are able to focus better, to be less susceptible to distractions, memory improves, even fine motor coordination improves. And we're performing tasks faster and with greater accuracy. I think this is a lot of what we've heard about in the last kind of 30 years in a way. And that's why the term frontal lobe has kind of entered into mainstream media. But beyond that, and I guess of particular interest to me as a psychologist, there is this kind of group of emotional and psychological benefits. And here as a psychologist, I guess my interest was initially sparked by the consistent research findings that when we include meditation with our traditional treatment methods, we really reduce our relapse rates. So, and this is for a range of clinical disorders, depression, anxiety, and a variety of anxiety disorders. But how does it do that? And again, this seems to be quite intimately related to our frontal lobe benefits, that we enhance our self-awareness. So we're more aware of our own mind and what it's doing. We increase our emotional self-regulation. You need that self-awareness before you can get that enhanced self-regulation.
Is it safe to say that you don't get as caught up in things? In other words, if you have this sort of self-awareness, if you're increasing this frontal area of your brain and you have this self-awareness, then it's easier for you to catch yourself when you're going to react. Like somebody might say something to you that might trigger you normally, and you fly off the handle and you get into a big fight. You can kind of say, well, hang on a second, I can see I'm about to get triggered, and have that sort of extra presence that stops you from reacting. Is that sort of one of the benefits that you're talking about?
That's exactly it. I think it's great. In Buddhist traditions, we hear of the sixth sense, which is actually what psychologists call metacognition. It's our ability to be able to actually view our own mind. So those situations that you're talking about, we're kind of getting triggered. Normally we're just fused. We're just in there with our thoughts. We kind of are them. But meditation enables us to have some distance from them.
I know exactly what you're talking about. It's like you are the rage. Like if you're set off into a rage, you are that rage. You're living in that experience. It's very, very real to you. Whereas when you have meditation training, you can look at it from a distance and you can actually see yourself reacting. Or maybe it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you can't sleep, and normally your mind's going to go into this panic of all the things that could go wrong tomorrow and the rest of the rest of your life. And then you go, well, hang on a second. I know that at 3 o'clock in the morning when I can't sleep, my mind's going to do this, and you can actually watch your mind rather than be your mind. Is that?
Which is an incredibly entertaining thing, right?
Well, it's incredibly useful too, because then you don't get caught into the panic, because it's the panic that causes the stress hormones that cause you to gain weight. So if you're not getting caught in the panic, then to me it's a little bit like, just from my own experience, like let's say you're in an airplane, right? Let's say it's a cloudy day, right? And you're in a plane and you're going through the clouds, you're getting rocked around. Then you go through the clouds, it's a beautiful sunny day and you can see the clouds. Now the clouds are still there, but you're above the clouds and you're in the sun. To me, that's been my experience. When my mind is triggered and it's going off into that panic and anxiety and nervousness, that you can actually rise above it and you can watch it. You can see that you are not your mind. There's something different, and I think maybe that's what you're talking about. You're developing this area of your brain that's separate, so you can actually watch this panic and not be in the panic, and so it's not causing all the problems that the panic would be if you were in it. You're not in a storm. Is that sort of what you're saying?
It sounds like you've been meditating.
Meditation's a huge part of my life, so so for sure. But I've noticed that exact thing that you're saying. I've never put it in the terms that you have of activating the frontal area of your brain, but I understand that concept of being detached from the mind as opposed to being in the mind when it's going on its thing.
Right, Ben.
Yeah. So, I've also heard some meditation teachers talk about how and maybe this is related to what you're saying, it increases your coping skills. Is that fair to say? Like you just have more ability more tolerance and more ability to cope when things aren't going right?
Well, I think that's an extension of that ability to have some, what we would call some diffusion. So if we're normally fused with thoughts, once we've got that diffusion, we can then make choices. We then have choices because we're not in that kind of fight or flight, cortisol-based fear kind of space. And the term that we see in the literature is the enhanced self-regulation. Yeah. So we're better able to regulate ourselves in the many kind of situations and in the triggers that we all kind of find ourselves in. The interesting thing is we also see both a decrease in, meditators do report that there's kind of a decrease in the overall quantity of really negative and unhelpful or ruminative thinking patterns. Now, notice that's a decrease. Yeah. And I think that's so important because I don't want to get stuck in these ridiculous myths that we might be able to meditate and we'll never have negative thoughts, right? That's just absurd. Yeah. So it's not, so yes, we can see a decrease, but more importantly, we have a different relationship to them.
Different relationship. So my experience is it's both. One, you do have a decrease in the fearful related thoughts, and two, when you have them, you can detach from them. And I can tell you from a health and weight perspective, that's essential, because I think a lot of people get stuck with meditation, whereas they think that, okay, yeah, meditation reduces stress and stress hormones for that 20 minutes that you're doing it, but the reality is it reduces the stress hormones the rest of your day because of this self-regulation, self-awareness that you're talking about, because you're not getting triggered all day.
You can think of it like the benefits you can get out of interval training. You're still burning the fat for the rest of the day. It's kind of the same thing that you're getting with your meditation.
Now what about the fact that the research is coming out that meditation makes our brains more plastic, or increases neuron activity, or increases telomerase activity, which keeps us young? Are you familiar with any of those types of studies? Or?
So here's the thing. Anything that we're doing with our brain is in a way creating neuroplasticity, right? Because the brain is constantly learning.
Let's talk about what neuroplasticity is for people that aren't familiar, for starters.
Right. And again, I just want to strip this back to kind of, like, we're hearing that neuroplasticity is a new discovery, and in grand scientific terms it is, but in some ways we've always known, and neuroscientists thankfully knew a very long time ago, that the brain changes according to how we use it. Yeah. But what's really exciting is self-directed neuroplasticity. Yeah. So it's not that, oh, my environment is such that I'm surrounded by a lot of guitar players, and so I'm suddenly kind of picking up skills that relate to the guitar. That would in a way be neuroplasticity. But self-directed neuroplasticity is, I can literally sit here with my eyes closed. Literally, and use my mind in such a way that I am changing or affecting my brain. Yeah.
See, what it sounds like you're talking about too, which is a huge part of our approach and a big part of my practice and what I teach is visualization. In other words, and I'm just wondering, curious, in your meditation practice and working with clients, do you ever use like a visualization as part of your meditation? Because when you talk about guided plasticity, there's a lot of research to show that if you're imagining doing a sport, for example, then you're specifically creating neuroplasticity in the neurons and the nerve connections of that sport, or an instrument, or anything that you're doing. Juggling, you can just imagine yourself juggling and you're creating neuroplasticity. So what do you think of visualization? Is that something that you use at all with your practice?
Yeah, it's something I use with clients. It's also something I use myself. At the moment, the way in which I'm using visualization, I'm constantly experimenting on myself, you can imagine. I'm using two really specific approaches to visualization at the moment. And one is based on loving kindness and compassion meditation. So because I know and I understand self-directed neuroplasticity, I know that by literally visualizing myself as extending love and compassion, both to myself but to others, and visualizing those others as receiving those qualities, I am literally triggering, I'm developing new neural connections in the parts of my brain that relate to empathy, love, and compassion. I get quite excited about this part of the research because we only have around 10 years of research, which is like nothing in scientific terms. It's just baby knowledge around those techniques, but the findings are really exciting. The second way that I use visualization is actually a technique that we use in mindfulness-based cognitive behavioral therapy. And what we do is we bring to mind a particular scenario that's causing us some kind of angst. We are experiencing some kind of emotional suffering or difficulty with this situation. And we visualize ourselves in that situation and ourselves as remaining equanimous, which is a term we use a lot in meditation, which is to say balanced, composed, centered. But here's the thing. We visualize that no matter what way the outcome goes of that situation. Exactly. So whether it goes as unpleasant as it possibly could and the least desirable outcome, or if we get this kind of desired outcome, we literally visualize ourselves as being that highest vision of ourselves in that situation regardless.
Yeah. And do you find that effective with your clients?
Absolutely. So as I say, that's a technique literally taken out from mindfulness-based cognitive behavioral therapy. And clients do find that helpful. It can be immensely helpful, particularly on really tough issues.
Cool. So what other ways do you use meditation when working with your clients then?
Oh my gosh. So it would absolutely depend on the individual or group I'm working with. So for example, at the moment, something that really excites me is some work I'm doing with corporate organizations. Yeah. But I've had one, for instance, who's really specific. Often corporate organizations are approaching myself for kind of stress relief type things. Yeah. But I'm increasingly seeing groups and individuals coming and saying, I want to develop greater empathy. So one organization that I'm currently tailoring a training package for is for around literally enhancing and developing empathy. So I'm kept on my toes all the time in terms of techniques that I'm using. I still have a clinical practice, so I still do work with clients, both executive coaching, but also Medicare referred clients who are coming for a range of conditions from eating disorders through to depression and anxiety.
And do you find that meditation works with all those different things, anxiety, eating disorders, depression? Do you find it's beneficial in all those different ways?
I find in my own personal clinical experience, it's incredibly beneficial, and of course the research tells me the same thing.
So when you work with clients who have these specific issues, number one, you teach them meditation, and then do you teach them to meditate on their own every day? How do they develop a practice? What happens?
Obviously, the rate at which different people's practice will develop is different for everyone. But yes, I think the overall goal is to have people having an independent practice, but we can spend as long as we want to using assisted guided practices. So I have a million, as I'm sure you do too, recordings, it sounds like, of different meditation practices that people can use at home.
And what do you say to people when they say, "Oh, I can't meditate, my mind wanders, it's too hard"? What's your advice that you give to people when they experience that?
If someone says to me their mind wanders, I say welcome to having a mind.
And you can say, if your mind wanders, it doesn't mean your awareness has to wander. You can watch your mind wander.
It simply means you're alive. Right. And it also is one of the awareness of this kind of, oh my gosh, what is my mind doing? That's actually the first, that's your first achievement. You've just reached a point in meditation because prior to that, you weren't even aware.
That's right.
Where your mind was and what it was doing. So a wandering mind is a normal thing. Something I like to share with people is the idea that it's the function of the heart to beat. And in the same way, it's a function of the mind to think. Yeah. And even though, and in both scenarios, I guess, actually, to take a kind of training analogy, we know that we can, through exercise, train the heart in certain ways. But to just will the heart to stop is ridiculous and impossible. So similarly, it's the function of the mind to think. And yes, we can train it in certain ways, but we're never going to stop that. So as we've already discussed, there is a kind of eventual quieting of the mind. The mind does quiet, but the mind is never eradicated. I mean, really, what would that achieve? A teacher I really love in this regard, a woman, Pema Chodron, who is a Buddhist nun. And I just find that her advice here is just so grounded, so practical. And after 40 years as a professional meditator, I guess you could say she's a Buddhist nun, she still experiences thoughts. Yeah. I think we need to get really realistic about this, because so many people give up on meditation because they're having thoughts.
That's the worst part, is that you give up because you think you're not doing it right. And when I say, like with the visualizations that I make, I say just be present for it. You know, Woody Allen has this saying that I love, that 99% of success is just showing up. And to me, nowhere is that more true than meditation and visualization. You just show up, let your mind wander. Eventually you get engaged. Like I find in my own practice, and I've been meditating for years, I find my own practice that my mind's always going to be wandering, and then it gets to a certain point where something happens, and it's just kind of dissolves. There's just this stillness, and then it just goes from there. And I don't look for it. I don't try to get it. I don't worry if it's not there. It just happens when it happens, and that's the one thing that I find that trips people up the most, is this kind of judgment about their meditation, that they're not doing it right, that they can't do it, that it's not working, and then they give up.
There are so many myths and misconceptions, I think, about meditation.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if you wouldn't mind just real quick giving us a quick sample of the type of meditations that you do with your clients, something that we could practice at home. Would you mind doing that?
How long will you give me?
I mean, a couple of minutes is all, I think, is all we would need to get the benefit. I don't know how long would you want?
Beautiful. I do really recommend when we're just doing a couple of minutes of meditation, because there are so many meditation techniques, and I practice a variety of them. But I do think that if we just have a couple of minutes, and sometimes that's all we've got, I would always suggest more of a kind of in-the-moment mindfulness practice.
Okay.
Obviously, there's no research for that.
No. Everybody's feeling their way through the dark on this one. I get that. But I'd love a sample. I just want to taste it. It's like, to me, I mean, meditating to me is one of the most pleasurable things in the world, right? So it's sort of like we're sitting here talking about a menu, for a half an hour without tasting the delicious food. So I'm just wondering if we could have a sample. That's all.
Please. Okay. So I would ask that yourself and your listeners set yourself up to be comfortable. Okay. So sometimes that means we have to just rearrange our body. I really encourage that we then begin to shift our weight from one hip to the other, and kind of like a cat or a dog begins to kind of paw the cushion before they sit down. Really let yourself do that so that you can kind of come into your body. I learn a lot from my bulldog, I tell you. All right, and then I'd love if you could gently close your eyes and invite yourself to take a drink of 3 full and complete breaths. Really drink the breath. On your next exhalation, I'd invite you to ground down through the tailbone. And on your next inhalation, travel in one movement up the spine to the crown of the head, feeling yourself perhaps lift and lengthen just a little. And now just become aware of your body. Begin with kind of gross physical sensations, any aches, any pains. Just take a look at the body and just note whatever you've experienced there. And then take your awareness increasingly more subtle as you notice other experiences that are happening on this canvas that is your body. Perhaps tingling, perhaps tickling. I'd love if you could explore those little places where your clothing is touching your skin, or where you can feel your skin come into contact with the air, the exposed air surrounding you. There's an interaction happening there. All these things are happening all the time. We're just typically other places in our mind. And now that you've explored the body, take a moment to explore the senses. The 5 senses, everything that you can hear, everything you can smell, perhaps taste. We've already worked with touch. And still with the eyes closed, there is a world of vision, which may be the play of light through the eyelids, or it may be some kind of kaleidoscope display happening behind the eyelids. And whatever your experience has been, just allow it to be as it is, and it's obviously ever-changing. And then come back into the body again and scan down from the crown of the head, over the face, past the neck, the shoulders, as though someone has gently tipped a bucket of warm honey and it's trickling over your body at that pace. Just take a body scan. And then turn and explore your underlying emotion state. What mood or moods are passing through you in this moment? See if there's any obvious emotional quality to the mind, and simply acknowledge that. Having a very curious attitude and having that wisdom that next time you check in here, it will be different. And then bring your awareness back to the breath. Enjoy some full inhalations and exhalations. Then again, come back into your body as though you're awaking from a beautiful sleep or a deep massage. And know that in a few moments, you will open your eyes. But just marinate for a moment in the difference you have created in your physiology, in your mind, just from this brief mindfulness practice of just exploring what already is. And when you're ready, gently opening your eyes. So that little example was quite a kind of a rich, kind of embodied example in which we were encouraged to move and to journey. And that's a lovely inroad for beginners, because we're really letting the mind do what mind already wants to do. It wants to explore, it wants to go places. And so those kind of mindfulness practices, for beginners, they often report are very comfortable experiences.
Well, I can feel such a huge difference in just a couple of minutes that it's just night and day. And what I love best about a practice like that is not only do you feel amazing in just a couple of minutes, but like you said, it's like some sort of interval training. The whole rest of the next 24 hours, you're gonna be having a totally different experience in your day. I mean, for me now, I'm not going to start my day without a meditation. I mean, I don't care what's happening, that has to happen. Because once that happens, the rest of the day is beautiful. And if it doesn't happen, the rest of the day is going to be problematic. So developing that conditioning, I think, is just essential. And it's just so beautiful to see in just 2 or 3 minutes how amazing you can feel. It was really gorgeous. So how can we learn more about the work that you're doing and learn some of these meditations that you're teaching and all that kind of stuff? What's the best way to connect with you?
The best way to connect with me is through the website Calm Conscious Connected.
Conscious Connected.
calmconsciousconnected.com. That is definitely the best.
That's a great name.
It's actually incredibly intentional. I started discovering, wearing both my kind of anthropology hat, seeing how different cultures staged, how they taught meditation, and using my clinical hat of seeing the three major ways in which meditation changes the brain.
Yeah.
I think it's a really helpful model that the first thing is we get calm, right? Yeah. The next thing is we're doing that frontal lobe activity, and we're getting conscious, more aware, literally sharper, literally more dialed in. And then the third benefits that we haven't talked a lot about today are the benefits of that sense of interconnection and oneness. I guess the dissolution of that contracted, separate sense of self that we can all fall into.
That's such an important one that we just should touch on it real quickly, because does any of the research show that meditation activates parts of your brain that are in charge of feeling connected? Because that's been a huge thing for me, is that over the years I felt more and more connected to the world, to people, but also to other parts of myself that are non-physical. And I think it's a really useful thing when you're going through your day to not feel real stressed and real worried, because somehow when you feel connected, you just don't worry about things as much. You know you're going to be all right. You feel connected to that safety. You feel connected to support. Is there research behind that?
There is, and that's that body of research. Earlier when we were talking about visualization, I said I'm using a lot of loving kindness visualizations. That's that same body of research, the only 10 years old body of research. But what we do have there is some pretty interesting findings that a specific kind of network in the brain, and the name of this network, we're going to call it the social circuitry of the brain, that these specific meditations are activating that network. Now, that network anatomically is incredibly interesting, because do you know where it travels?
No.
It's a direct point of connection between that lower limbic system, that little kind of fearful, angry animal or child that we all have, and the frontal lobe. So anatomically, the social circuitry connects these two, right?
That's so interesting, because that's what's disconnected in us. You know, we act like an irrational child, and we don't want to, but we have no control over it. We'd like, you know, if you can connect those two, then you're not in that reactive state that's causing all the problems. So that's actually a really important circuitry.
I think so, because it's not about eradicating that part of ourselves. We are animals, and we all feel
we want to connect, that's all. We want to connect all the different parts. It's almost like we have three different brains. We've got an unconscious survival brain, then we've got a irrational emotional brain, and then we've got this intellectual brain, and they're not connected. You know, they don't interact with each other properly. A perfect example is, you know, you want to lose weight, but that doesn't mean your hypothalamus, your animal brain, is going to do anything about it. And you can't talk to your hypothalamus, but you can talk to it. You can say, we need to lose weight, and then your hypothalamus will, you know, set the dials and you'll lose the weight. So having a connected brain is the best thing you can have, and if meditation does that, which I believe it does just from my own experience, then to me it's the most important practice that you can do. So real quick, what type of projects are you working on at the moment?
Some pretty exciting stuff. Yeah. One of my babies that is about to come into the world has been, so Calm, Conscious and Connected workshops are quite intensive urban workshops that I've been running in Sydney, but I have been working for a while in producing an online format of that. So in May, there'll be a 9-week online meditation course that is a blend of the heart and the practice, but also the science. So I've been working on that, and then, as I mentioned, working a lot with tailoring meditation programs, increasingly for organizations and corporates, based on what they really need, whether that's developing enhanced empathy or stress reduction. And I'm also right now really interested in developing kind of intermediate and advanced meditation trainings that pull in what we know from mindfulness-based CBT. So taking it out of clinics, out of hospitals, we can all benefit from this. I mean, seriously, those practices we touched on earlier of practicing remaining equanimous no matter what way the outcome of this situation may be. So I really would like to take those out into workshops for people who've been practicing meditation for a while and just want to take it up to the next level.
Excellent. So at Calm, Conscious, Connected, we can learn about the workshop that you're going to have in May, and is there other information we have that you can get that's on the site about meditating and how to meditate, and some sample meditations and things like that we can get?
Yeah, so actually if you connect with me through that site, I am sending people, it's a little 10-minute taster of one of those mindfulness practices. So great for beginners.
Awesome.
So and of course, another way to connect with me is, I guess particularly for people who are based in Sydney, if people are wanting to connect with me physically in person, is through the Happiness Institute, which is where I have a private practice.
Excellent. All right, well, Dr. Paula, I really appreciate your time, your expertise, and your sharing this incredible information with the world, which, in my opinion, is some of the most valuable and practical and useful information that you can have. So thanks for everything that you're doing, and thanks for sharing with us.
Bless you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, thanks everyone for listening. Meditation, as you know, I'm a huge fan of it, and the benefits we're just finding out more and more. So the best thing you can do is just practice it. You can see how just that few minutes, how different you felt if you practiced along with us. Definitely go to Paula's site and check out some of her meditations and maybe her online course, and have a meditation practice every day if you can. The visualizations that we do here are meditations. So really one of the best things you can do is have a daily meditation practice, even if it's just a few minutes every morning. And that's going to change your life forever. I know it's helped me tremendously and many other people I work with. So that's it for now. Hope you have an awesome day, and I look forward to speaking with you soon. Take care.